Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Bottom Rung with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing chapter 53. The only sound was that of pebble falling as Kundar stood and dusted himself off, eyeing Tibs cautiously. Tibs realized each of his friends were looking at him as if there was something odd about him. Tibs? Jekyll asked. Are you okay? You heard him, right? He asked in return. Heard who? The fighter asked. You heard me? The voice asked cautiously. Jenny, get over here. Him! Tibbs pointed to the wall. Everyone looked at where he pointed. He wished the voice came from a specific place, that the speaker was there instead of sounding all around him. What did you do now? Jenny said. Why is it you always think I did something? Stowe replied. He looked at his friends, who were staring at him again. You aren't hearing that? Stowe, everything in here is your doing, she said. Tibs, Kirina said, maybe we need to have the clerics look at you? I'm fine, he said, and looked up. Come out! I believe Kirina may be right, Kundar said, joining the others. Is he talking to you? Jenny asked. Tibs, the cleric continued. We do not know how your essence affects you. I think so, Stowe answered her. It affects us all in one way or another. Okay, it does affect us all in one way or another. Well, that's enough. Kamdar, Tib snapped. Stop talking. All of you, stay quiet. The clerk stiffened, his expression darkening, but he said nothing. You can't do that, Kenny said. He doesn't. Stowe, Tibbs ordered. Show yourself now. You were saying? Stowe asked Kenny. How is he hearing you? Ganymede whispered. You too, Ganny, Tibbs ordered. Did you tell him my name? She accused Stowe. If he can hear me, then he probably heard me say your name. Of all the stupid thing to... Enough! Tibbs yelled, which caused his friend to look at one another. I'm not crazy, he told them. I believe you. Jekyll hurried to say. Tibbs glared at him. What else do you want me to say, Tibbs? You're talking to no one, and you tell me you're not crazy. I've been around fighters who've been hit in the head once too often. Caused that a few of those, actually. I'm not going to contradict the guy who's responsible for me being able to walk. I'm not going to take my essence back, Tibbs said in exasperation. I believe you, Jekyll replied in the same hurried tone. Stowe, if you don't show yourself right now, This should be interesting, Kenny said. Jenny, Tibbs warned, don't make me go look for you either. Did you just talk to me? She whispered. Yes, Tibbs said through gritted teeth. It was one thing not to see the people talking. It was another for them to act like he couldn't hear them at this point. She shrieked, then fell silent. Tibbs looked around. What happened? I think you scared her, Stowe replied, stunning baffled. I've never seen her scare, and trust me, I've tried. At least you're answering me. How about you show yourself now, before my friends tackle me and take me to a cleric? If it's going to stop this thing about you hearing me, I prefer they do that. It's not going to help, told his friends who were placing themselves around him. Stowe sighed. Genny, what are the rules about this? Genny, come on, it isn't like he can do anything. He can hear me, she replied, sounding further. He can hear me too. At this point, I think we can just accept it and move past that. Can I tell him? How would I know? Tibbs turned to keep an eye on everyone. It wouldn't hurt him, but if they thought there was something wrong with his head that involved the dungeon, they might kick him out. So there aren't any rules about this? Stowe asked. No one can talk to us. Didn't you listen? I'm at the dungeon, Stowe hurried to say. No, you can't tell him that, Ganny yelled, sounding like she was back in the room. What? Tibbs demanded, looking up. You said there aren't any rules against me telling him. Ganny sputtered something, but Tibbs was too busy dodging Jackal to pay attention. Then Maz, felt the air essence around him take shape and shoved his against that, disrupting whatever Kirina tried to do. But he lost track of Kumdar, had paid little attention to him. Tibbs admitted himself as the cleric grabbed him in a bear hug. Not fight, Tibbs. We are trying to help. All right, that's enough. Tibbs wriggled in Kumdar's arm. He was stronger than Tibbs expected, but nothing like Jackal. And the rose created play Tibbs could take advantage of. Tibbs, Kumdar said, as Tibbs used his weight to make himself slip lower in the hug. Do not force me to weaken you, please. I said enough! Stowe's words were punctuated with the shaking of the room. Tibbs used the cleric's surprise to slip out and move away from the others. What was that? As asked, readying himself for another shake. Right, Stowe said with a sigh. They can't hear me. That was the dungeon saying we shouldn't fight, Tibbs said. That isn't what I said. Then tell them otherwise. Tibbs grinned. I can't, and you... Oh, you are going to make me regret helping you, aren't you? Didn't you say you liked how clever Tibbs was? Kenny asked, sounding far again. I'm considering my position on that, Stowe answered. You're a lot more interesting when you aren't using that wit against me, Tibbs. And how about showing my friends I'm not crazy? They can't hear me, remember? I said showing, not telling. How? In the distance, Ganymede laughed. This isn't funny, Ganny. Stowe sighed. Fine. Tell your friends not to hurt BB. Don't attack the golem, Tibbs said to his friends, who were back focusing on him. What golem? Jekyll asked. Something stumped far away in the corridor. I think he means that one, as said, notching an arrow. I said not to attack it, Tibbs stated. That sounds a lot like the last time, Karina said. You mean that time the big golem came and didn't attack Tibbs? Jekyll asked, looking thoughtful. You know, where we threw everything we could at it and barely hurt it? Oh, I am so glad they think that, Stowe said. They almost destroyed BB before he could help you. Tibbs was better after that encounter, Condor said. No longer so sure of that, Kierner said, looking at Tibbs. Tibbs, are you controlling the dungeon? You even think of saying yes, Stowe warned, and I'm opening a pit under you. Let's see you get out of that. Can you do that? As far as Tibbs knew, the dungeon couldn't make changes when they were in a room. But then again, they also couldn't talk, so he needed to keep that in mind. Try me and find out. He looked under his feet. How deep would it go? How wide? No, I can't. He's doing it himself. And by him, you mean? The dungeon, Tibbs answered. Shouldn't I tell them your name? Absolutely not, Ganymede yelled from wherever she was. I'd rather you didn't, Stowe said. It has a name? Serena asked. Tibbs said. He has a name, but I'm not going to tell you. He paused. Do you care if they call you it? Are you an E? I don't know how dungeons work. I don't know how dungeons work either, Stowe said. It's why Ganny's around. Does it matter, Ganny? I don't really care. It's the first time I've been addressed by anyone other than Ganny. And I do my best to make sure she's Okay. This is interesting. Because one thing I want to establish is that dungeons don't have genders. Now, Tibbs is assigning one because Stowe sounds like a guy and Ganny sounds like a girl. But Stowe would not use that. But I do my best to make in time something other than Stowe is. I know. Hopefully. Okay. I really don't care. This is the first time I've been addressed by anyone other than Ganny, and anytime Something other than Stow is used. I know I'm in trouble. He doesn't care, he told Kirina, who was looking confused. Sounds like a guy to me, so I'm going to stick with he while. Don't tell them. Tibs winced at Stow's yelling. Tibs? Jekyll asked, eye on the opening the stumping came from. What's wrong? No need to yell, he told Stow. Don't tell them about Ganny, please. Nah. Oh. Decisions and consequences. Don't tell them about Ganny. I may have no choice but to go with they. I could justify still using she because Tibs uses it, but I am really worried that I would set a precedent. How you do that, by the way? Here's me through you, dummy, she grumbled. Jekyll cursed and his friends stepped back. Tibs looked at the opening and gawked. The golem nearly filled it. It had thick legs, arms, and torso and head, and it was big and looked exactly like Tibs thought when he imagined a brute. That is what I took the essence of? It was nowhere that big. Miss said, this is an upgraded BB. Still said, bigger brute. You are not calling it that. And he yelled. The golem waved. Hello, everyone. Did you hear that? Tibs asked hopefully. They didn't. Still replied as his friends shook their heads. Jekyll timidly waved back. I haven't figured out how to get one of them to talk. Their speech is really complicated. Did you know that? Then how are you talking? Oh, we aren't. I'm thinking. Tibs? Kirina called to him. I'd really appreciate it if you could explain what's going on. The dungeon brought Bigger Brute here so you'd see he's talking with me. Tibs, dungeons don't talk. I don't know why that's here, but it isn't to talk. Maybe Tibs taught it to do tricks? Jekyll said. Jekyll asked. Jekyll asked hopefully. You know, like they do with dogs? Now that is insulting, Still said. Doesn't mean anything by it, Tibs said. It's just how Jekyll is. You should see the trouble he gets himself into with Krosef at times. Who is this Krosef? He's come up in a few of your conversation. He's Jekyll's special guy. Don't you dare talk about Crow with the dungeon, Tibs, Jekyll warned. You can't talk with it, Jekyll said in exasperation. It's nothing more than an animal. You don't talk with dogs, do you? You haven't met my sister, Jekyll grumbled. Fine. Since the dungeon can't understand anything. Hi, did you know that Kirina has been spending time with... He was silenced by a gust of wind sending him into the wall. How do you know about that? She demanded. Jekyll grinned from where he sat. I know people. Now that's out of the way. The fighters looked up. See, Kirina, Jekyll, she warned. But the dungeon can't understand me, right? I believe she may be more concerned about us hearing what you were about to say, Kimdar said. Tibs still said, do me a favor and ask Kirina if the name Robert of Gentry means anything to her. Tibs bit his lower lip. Whatever this was, Kirina didn't want it spoken aloud. Kirina, can you come here? I have to ask you something. Tibs, I'm not telling you about... I don't need to know who you spend time with. I have enough of Jekyll and Krosef stuff. Motions for her to come. She glared at the fighter before joining Tibs. He lowered his voice. The dungeon asked me to ask you, she rolled her eyes, if the name Robert of Gentry means something to you. Her expression was answer enough. How do you know, Tibs? she hissed. If Jackal, the dungeon told me. Tibs, dungeons don't talk, they don't think. You don't have to hide behind it. I just want to know who told you. Crossed his arm over his chest. I don't hide behind anyone. I'm telling you, the dungeon told me because he told me. He looked up. How do you know? Robert was on a team who came in 22 teams before you. He mentioned Karina with enough detail. I thought she could be the one. Tibbs, I don't want to know. Tibbs, no, it's her life. If she didn't tell us, she has her reasons. Still sighed. All right. Kina looked at him, her expression between horrified and amazed. You're talking with it. He said that more than once. She seemed to have trouble figuring out what to say. And what you don't want to know is about me? The dungeon hears what we say, all the teams, he added. She blushed. And Robert talked about me. The red deepened. With his team. Air whipped at her feet hard enough to move some of the smaller rocks. I am going to send him flying. She snarled and began pacing. Well, maybe she'll take care of the thing herself, Sto said. Do me a favor before she goes and tell him how much of a creep he is. No matter not to mention, I can understand all of you. Half the fun of having you come in here is listening to you talk. What's the other half? Watching you overcome my traps, of course. Tell me, how did you that to the Whipper? Don't you know? I was sort of busy working on something. I don't really watch you do the first floor anymore. I know you know it too well. I guess I still miscalculated. I didn't think you'd be here so soon. Or you know, Kenny said in the distance, lost track of time again. Yeah, that time thing is another one that I'm fuzzy about. You just did what you I just did what you told me to do. I pulled his essence into me. It was harder than the first time, but it's the same thing. You could hear me then? Yeah, but I don't know why. Why me and not the others? I'm just a rogue. Snow snorted. Right, just a rogue. One with 5 elements. Something even Ganny didn't know was possible. She freaked out when you came in with water and earth. You know my elements? Of course. I know everything inside myself. Please tell Jekyll not to hurt BB. He wants to fight something. There's a bunch of ratlings in the next room. Jekyll, Tibs called as the fighter startled, acting like he'd been caught sneaking into Crocef's room by his father. The dungeon would rather you kill the ratling in the next room. I wasn't. Jekyll protested. What next room? After this is the long hall. I redesigned it, Still said. That was just there for you. It's changed. Told you that wasn't a mistake on the map, Ness said. Tandy wouldn't have made that kind of mistake. Still chuckled. I don't even think of telling me about him and Tandy. Tibbs warned. I won't. Why did you have that for me? Why did you have that for me? In that last run, you and Jekyll talked about arranging an audience with air and fire. I asked Ganny how I could help you so that do that, and she refused to help in any way to do something like that. She replied. She gave in, and I said I'd let her design the third floor. That was unfair, and you know it, she called. So I made the room. What if I needed to have air instead? Oh, there was a second room on the opposite wall, but when I saw you had air already, I locked it. Tibbs nodded, watching Jackal carefully squeeze between BB and the wall. He's going to check if there's a room, I said, sounding annoyed. So you're really talking to the dungeon? Tibbs nodded. And he understands everything we say. Tibbs nodded again. Why are you killing us? Mez demanded loudly. What have we done to you to deserve that fate? Silence. Mez looked at Tibbs expectantly. Well? He asked uncertainly. Still's not going to answer, and he said. It isn't a part he's particularly happy with. Then why do it? Tibbs, she said, dungeons are vital to the world. It's where adventurers come to become stronger. Nowhere else can they do it so efficiently. But people don't fight at their best unless the risk is real. So dungeons have to create real threats. What still makes has to be a danger to you, so you'll push yourself. And yes, that means some of you die. More than some, Tibbs said, fighting to keep his anger in control. under control. I have lost a lot of friends in here. Walter didn't die because you pushed him to be better. I'm sorry, Tibbs, still said. I hate how much pain you were in. Then why do it? There are rules, Kenny said. Dungeons have to do certain things and can't do others. There was a clear reproach in her voice saying that, and Tibbs remembered the belt, how lucky it had been to find it. Dungeons seems to be the only place things like luck happen, Alistair had said. You gave me the belt so I could keep the amulet. Yes, he did, she replied sharply. You were so angry, and I couldn't tell you how sorry I was. I lost it, along with the amulet. I know, I'm sorry. He's not giving them back, she said with finality. He looked at Maz, who was still waiting. The dungeons are here to push us to get better, and we won't work as hard. Wow. Okay, the dungeons are here to push us to get better, and we won't work as hard. Okay, as hard as we can to survive. The dungeons are here to push us to get better, and we won't work as hard as we can to survive unless the danger is real and deadly. Maz didn't move, didn't take his eyes off him until he nodded. There is a point to this. There is a way to survive. It isn't all just an excuse to make us suffer until it eats us. That's right, Still said. Tibs nodded. Mez smiled. Then, dungeon, do your worst. Turned and headed to the opening blocked by BB. Not the reaction I was expecting, Still said. It's fair, Tibs said. Hard, but fair. Mez respects that. Maybe you should like him, then, Kenny said. There's more fun, Still replied. Can you tell me why Fire said I broke some rules when I had my audience with him? Kenny, you're the one with all the rules. The one that applies to you, I don't know the rules for an audience other than the way to get someone there is through intense emotion while being surrounded by the element they want to meet. Thank you. Guys, Jekyll called from the other side of the dungeon. There is a room, and it's filled with some stone rat people. You have no idea how creepy they look. Thank you, Stowe replied proudly. Tibs, tell him to move out of the way. I'm going to send BB back where he belongs. You aren't set to fight him until deeper on the floor. But not the last room? Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah. I don't need this. Because that is something I never stuck with. Jackal, BB's leaving. Give it room if you don't want it to trample you. I wouldn't, Stowe said, offended. Tib shrugged as Jackal scrambled out of the way of the golem. He doesn't know that. The golem walked away faster than Tibs expected for something that large and made of stone. How did you know, Tibs? Jekyll asked. Pion's map didn't mention anything about creatures in that room. Stowe chuckled. Not the fastest of the runner, is he? The dungeon told me. I thought you believed me. Tibs accused the fighter. Jekyll grinned. Come on. You know I'd have said anything to keep you calm at that moment. It didn't work, and the dungeon really talks with me. I really believe you now. And since Commodore was right about you making friends, how about asking for all the loot in the dungeon? Sure, Stowe said before Tibbs could refuse, so long as he can earn it. Tibbs smiled. I'm not going to like the answer, am I? Jekyll asked. You have to fight for each coin you want. Oh, come on. Friends do friends favors. Do you want to point out I'm not his friend? Or wait until he has to take out on some of the larger creatures I have in mind? Tibbs patted the fighter's arm. Friends know what's really good for you and make sure you get it. Don't worry, there's going to be fighting. Have you seen those things? They're hardly your height. There's bigger stuff coming, Tibbs said, heading for the hall. Big. Like big brute. That can't be what it's called. That name sucks. Told you, Kenny said. It doesn't suck. It's descriptive. Still reply. Tibs, we need to talk about something. Sure. What? He slowed his walk. You can't do what you did to Whipper again. Why not? It's something I can do. I thought that what you put against us was so we get better. It is, but if you start turning all my creatures into rubble with a touch, I'm going to have to come up with much tougher ones. How is everyone else going to deal with them? I'm not here for you to get better. I'm here for everyone. I can't make changes for only one person. Don't start, Genny. These rooms were a one-time thing. It would be easier if I did. I'm not here to be easy, Tibs. He nodded. I don't know how easy it's going to be to control it. It's a new thing for me. All right, I've been there. So we're going to consider this a trial run. You do your best not to drain any of my creatures you encounter, and I won't hold those you do against you. Okay, that's fair. Hard, but fair. I figured you'd respect that too. He fell silent, and Kumdar fell into step with him. I did not wish to intrude on your conversation. I admit to finding it difficult to believe the dungeon speaks. Nothing I have uncovered mentions this. I don't think it's something that's happened to anyone before. Your element, then? Tibbs nodded, although he wasn't sure that was all there was to it. Not if the hissing from before had been him hearing something of Sto and Ganny. Do you want to ask him something? The cleric shook his head. Unlike the others, and you, I do not have a history with the dungeon, and my curiosity is the kind that requires me to do the work. You can sense secrets here? Commander laughs. So many you would not believe me, Tibbs. Dungeon, Tibbs called. Do you normally talk when we go through the rooms? Sometimes, when it's entertaining. Genny and me will watch and comment. Tibbs nodded. Can I ask you not to comment when it's me? Hearing you talk while fighting for my life is going to be distracting. That's a good point. Genny, is there a way we can turn this off? Oh, and how do you figure I'd know the answer to that question? You know everything? Still replied matter-of-factly. Well, that's clearly no longer true, is it? We're going to have to test things, but I figured that while Tibbs is in a room, isn't the time to do it, unless you don't mind losing him. I'd rather not be lost, Tibbs said, which earned him a raised eyebrow from Kumdar. Tibbs, Jekyll called and motioned him over. Look at this. The room was gigantic, more round than square. The floor was uneven, but in the way the ground was and looked to be dirt. Huts spread around the room with rat people working around them. Yeah, right, I changed that. This was a camp. This was a camp of them, Tibbs realized. How many do you think you can turn into rubble? None, Tibbs answered with a sigh. What do you mean? You took down that golem. It would take 3 of those to match it. If it's too easy for me, the dungeon's going to make it tougher. Okay. Tibbs rolled his eyes. There were days when Jekyll tested his patience. If he makes it hard for me when I can kill with one touch, how hard is it going to be for you then? The fighter looked at the room. I could still fight them, he said confidently. I'm not so sure, Mez said. And since Tibbs is considerate enough to think of all of us instead of only his greedy little self, I'm going to be happy with him only having his normal impressive array of skill. Yes, Jackal, stop trying to take advantage of the youngest of us. I thought you were better than that. Jekyll sighed and looked over his shoulder at the cleric. I have nothing to add. I believe you have been appropriately chastised. When this is over, you're going to explain to me if that makes it all worse or not. Jekyll grumbled. Karina chuckled. All right, is everyone ready? Jekyll asked. What did you call these things? The dungeon calls them ratlings. Tibbs pulled out 2 of his imbued knife. I've heard worse. I now, Still protested, and Tibbs looked up. Sorry, I'll be silent. Tibbs looked at the room and the ratling, going about their business with no idea what was coming. He couldn't use his essence to make things easier, hadn't had it before, and he'd won plenty of fight. This was going to be fun. This concludes chapter 53 of Bottom Rung. If you are enjoying this, please subscribe, hit the bell, hit the thumbs up, and share. If you want to read the whole story, it is on Royal Road. The link is in the note, along with a link to my Patreon, should you want to support me. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.